Hello, Mariana. Surprised to see me again? Not really.
On May the 19th, 2024, deputies were dispatched to a remote stretch of desert known as Pajarito Mesa in Bernalillo County, New Mexico. It was approximately 4 p.m. A caller had reported finding a man in the area. The location sits west of Albuquerque. It is isolated, quiet, and generally difficult to access. When deputies arrived, they discovered the male. He wasn't moving. Officers believed that he had been there for quite some time. At that moment, investigators did not know who he was. There were no immediate answers as to how he arrived there. There were no clear signs explaining who he had been with. The location itself raised an immediate question. How does a 16-year-old end up in a remote desert far from home? As detectives began retracing the final 24 hours of this young man's life, the sequence of events that emerged had some of the most insane twists and most disturbing pieces of evidence I've ever seen. So, what happened in the desert? By the way, this is Dark Case, and you can call me Jack. I bring you rare and unseen true crime cases, as well as other things that you may later regret knowing, with multiple uploads every single week. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, then make sure you join the Dark Case family now, by simply hitting subscribe and turning all notifications on. And now for today's silly little question. What is your go-to pizza order? Let me know down in the comments. Big update for the channel here on YouTube. I have had a total overhaul of channel memberships. This means that there are now new tiers, and these tiers include new perks, where you can get things like exclusive members-only videos and access to the Jack's House podcast, which I record in a cemetery. In that podcast, I speak much more candidly, so you can learn a bit more about me and just the behind-the-scenes process overall. But now, on with the video. On May the 19th, 2024, Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office deputies responded to Pajarito Mesa. They'd received a call about a body in the area. Pajarito Mesa is a remote desert location in southwest Albuquerque. It's accessible by dirt roads, and it's not a place that has heavy traffic. When deputies arrived, they located the body of a male. Investigators observed at least one gunshot wound. The case was immediately treated as a homicide. Remote homicide scenes such as this present unique challenges for investigators. Desert terrain can complicate evidence recovery due to wind exposure, interference by wildlife, and the lack of surveillance that you would see in a more urban area. There were no businesses nearby with CCTV. This was not the kind of place you'd get pedestrian witnesses. All of this means that detectives must rely heavily on forensic processing and on potential digital evidence to reconstruct events. At first, deputies faced a significant obstacle to get the investigation moving at all. They did not have a confirmed identity for the victim. Identification is a critical early step because it determines where investigators could even begin looking for motive, on who they could be looking at as suspects, or any potential evidence at their home or places that they frequent. In this case, the breakthrough came when the family of a missing 16-year-old reported him missing. The victim was identified as Jesus Quintana Cota. Some reports also reference his full name as Jesus Urim Quintana Cota. The identification process required careful verification due to his age. Authorities later stated that the delay in public notification was intentional. Officials explained that maintaining investigative integrity and properly notifying family members took priority over immediate media release. Public announcement of this case was not made until May 30th, 2024. That was 11 days after the initial discovery. That delay drew questions from members of the community and from individuals who contacted local outlets, asking why the case had not been covered sooner. Law enforcement stated that detectives needed time to confirm identity and to follow some initial leads before releasing details. During this period, the homicide unit began working backwards from the discovery site. When a victim is found in a remote area such as this, investigators typically attempt to determine whether that location is the primary scene or if it is a secondary disposal site. This obviously matters massively. You don't want to be working on a case from the wrong place right from the start. If this ending had occurred elsewhere, then it would expand the geographic scope of this investigation. But if it had occurred at Pajarito Mesa, then it narrows the timeline. As detectives analysed digital communications, interviews, and vehicle movements, a picture began to form. The investigation would eventually connect Jesus to 3 people. All of them were under 19 years old, and according to court filings, the events that led to that desert began the day before, under the pretense of something much more ordinary. On June 27, 2024, just a month after deputies discovered Jesus' body, 3 suspects were taken into custody. The arrests followed an investigation that was led by the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office Homicide Unit, working in coordination with the 2nd Judicial District Attorney's Office. The individuals arrested were Daniel Medrano Garcia, aged 18, Dominic Marquez, aged 17, and Marina Gomez Salinas, aged 18.
Put that stuff down real quick. Do you want to drop your bag as well?
Yeah.
Do you want to turn around?
Are you guys gonna grab this?
We'll take care of everything. Don't turn around. Thank you. Thanks for being cooperative with us. Where do you want to put your stuff? What were you going to ask me to do?
What do I do with my check? Can you call my mom or something?
Go ahead and sit right there. I'll put these at your feet. I'll put the food right here.
Hello, Mariana. Surprised to see me again? Not really. I'm with the sheriff's office. I'll be the one coming in, chatting with you here in a little bit, okay? We have a lot going on, clearly. So if you need anything, just knock on the door, okay? Someone will come.
And then when we can make a call.
So that will happen when you get booked into jail. It doesn't happen here.
And then where I have a warrant for.
We'll explain that, okay? Because there's some things I have to advise you before we talk, okay? All right, I know you have a lot of questions. I have all the answers, so I will be back in just a little bit, okay? I'll try to find out one for you.
Although Medrano Garcia and Gomez Salinas were 18 at the time of the arrest, court records indicate that all 3 of them were juveniles at the time of the crime. Medrano Garcia and Gomez Salinas were booked into the Metropolitan Detention Center. Marquez was booked into the Youth Services Center. All 3 of them were initially charged with first-degree murder, with kidnapping, robbery, conspiracy, and tampering with evidence. Those charges reflected the state's position that the incident was not spontaneous, and during subsequent hearings, prosecutors emphasized that text messages suggested coordination both before and after the event. Pre-trial detention then became the immediate issue. The state filed motions requesting that Marquez and Medrano Garcia both remain in custody pending trial. Judge Joseph Montano granted those motions. He had previously ordered Gomez Salinas to remain in custody as well. In one hearing, the judge said that the state had proved by clear and convincing evidence that Gomez Salinas may still pose a danger to the public. That ruling prevented release whilst awaiting trial.
I do believe that the state has proved by clear and convincing evidence that Ms. Gomez Salinas may pose a danger to the public.
On the other side of things, the third of 3 teenage suspects facing first-degree murder charges found out she will stay in jail until her trial. Today, her defense argued Gomez Salinas believed they were only trying to plot a robbery and said because of that, she should be released. Also, in addition to her age and lack of criminal history, the judge did not buy that whatsoever and decided she will be behind bars until trial.
At a public news conference in July 2024, Bernalillo County Sheriff John Allen and District Attorney Sam Bregman both addressed the case directly. Bregman stated that he would personally prosecute the case, alongside Chief Deputy District Attorney Natalie Lyon. Sheriff Allen publicly connected the case to broader concerns about rising violent juvenile crime in Albuquerque. During this period, officials also noted that the juvenile detention center population had risen to near capacity. The maximum capacity was reported as 65, and at the time of the announcement, there were 63 inmates.
3 arrests just from this, and the 2 that you see, I saw a lot of questions on social media. Why is a juvenile not pictured? We can't picture someone that's a juvenile. But here is a main point on this case, which involves speed racing, which goes into other violent crime charges, and the tip of the spear, which ended up in a homicide. Before I continue in that case, I am glad that we can at least bring the family of the victim some type of closure, even though it does not bring their loved one back. So we're working very hard and diligently through the collaboration that we have with DA Bregman's office to bring people to justice. Daniel Medrano Garcia and Mariano Gomez Salinas, so you see, the only reason their photos are up here is because they were booked into MDC and they're 18 years old. But please highlight that they were 17 years old as a juvenile when they committed and helped with this homicide. These are 3 more people, 3 more juveniles that have committed the tip of the spear homicide in our community.
As the case moved forward, the 3 defendants would take different legal paths. One would accept a plea, one would be acquitted of the most serious charge, and one would remain locked up, awaiting trial. According to court documents, the chain of events that led to Pajarito Mesa began on May 18, 2024. Prosecutors later stated that the attack may have been connected to an earlier incident, one that occurred on April 1, 2024. In that April incident, Jesus Quintana Cota allegedly took shots at a white Chrysler 300, a vehicle that belonged to Daniel Medrano Garcia. This event allegedly happened in northwest Albuquerque. That incident was reported to Albuquerque police. Before the identity of victim Jesus was released, both of these events appeared completely separate. But prosecutors will later argue that it may have provided context for everything that unfolded weeks later. Whether it was retaliation or confrontation, investigators focused on communications between the teenagers in the days leading up to May the 18th. Text messages were cited in court as evidence, suggesting a level of planning both before and after Jesus met his end. Digital communications are often central in modern investigations because they create pre-made timestamps, they give indicators of intent, and they also reveal general links between networks of people. In this case, those messages would later be referenced during detention hearings and used as justification for keeping the defendants in custody. So, what actually happened in the desert? On May the 18th, Mariana Gomez Salinas contacted Jesus. She lured him under the pretense of going on a date. At the time of the incident, Gomez Salinas was 16 years old. Jesus was also 16. Court filings state that she drove him to a lookout area near Dennis Chavez and Atrisco Vista. That location would become the first confirmed physical meeting point of the day. When Jesus and Mariana arrived, Daniel Medrano Garcia and Dominic Marquez were already waiting. According to the criminal complaint, Medrano and Marquez beat Jesus at that location. He was then loaded into Gomez Salinas' vehicle, and at this stage, the legal classification of this case shifted. Once someone is forcibly moved against their will, the charge threshold for kidnapping can now be met under New Mexico law. This detail would later become significant during Gomez Salinas' trial. Her defense attorney, Christopher C. Marlowe, argued that she believed only a robbery was going to take place. He also stated publicly that Mariana had been used by the boys in order to arrange the meeting. Lawyer Marlowe further claimed that if she had not cooperated, that the 2 others would have harmed her. Those statements introduced a dispute over intent and coercion. However, prosecutors emphasized the planning component, referencing text messages that they argued demonstrated coordination. Judge Joseph Montano later referenced those communications during detention hearings. He said that they suggested a devastating level of planning. At this point, the timeline shows that there was that prior incident in April, there was a digital footprint of text messages, and there was a planned meetup under false pretenses, all of which combined resulted in Jesus being physically restrained and placed into a vehicle. What remained unclear was how that situation escalated from a beating at a lookout to becoming an actual fatal event in a remote desert area.
Here's the thing, okay? And I really need you to think about this. Okay? Yeah, no, I don't think you're a bad kid. Cam, I got nothing against you. I don't know you. I've never met you before in my life. Okay? But right now is your chance to be honest about what happened. Because let me tell you, right now, you're facing a first-degree murder. That's life in prison. Yeah. You go away forever. Okay? You're 18. Forever's a long time. Yeah. Okay? That is a long time. Okay? So that's what you're charged with, because I haven't talked.
That's what I warrant for?
First-degree murder, kidnapping, robbery, conspiracy, and tampering. Yes.
Cool.
So we're going to talk about that. Okay?
It's first-degree murder?
First-degree murder, kidnapping, conspiracy.
What is that?
Basically, you worked with other people to do stuff. Tampering with the evidence. That's basically you got rid of some stuff, you damaged stuff, you deleted stuff, that type of stuff. And then the kidnapping and robbery. Those are the two others. Okay?
No.
So why was Dominic wanting to unalive?
I don't know.
You do know.
I guess revenge for me, but
Okay.
Did you ask for it?
The next phase of the timeline would answer that question, but not all of it. After Jesus was placed in the vehicle on May the 18th, the group then travelled onwards. According to the criminal complaint, the next step involved picking up another individual. Investigators allege that the group picked up an unidentified older Mexican male. Court documents state that this man pointed a rifle at Jesus. So, at that stage, you have the three teens initially implicated, and this new, older man. The presence of an older individual introduced a new layer to the investigation. Authorities have stated that the unidentified man was the one that allegedly actually pulled the trigger. At various points during court proceedings, defense counsel noted that this alleged shooter was not in custody. That detail would later become central to how responsibility was argued in court.
Kind of explain a little bit about what's going on. Okay. I'm going to have another detective come in here, and he is going to show you a series of photographs about that other person you told me about, the guy with the sombrero. And he's going to explain it. He has no clue. He doesn't know anything about this case. So even if you ask him, I just have to use someone that has no idea about the case, present this to you. If you see him, great. If you don't, or not. Once that's done, I'm going to come in and...
Is that going to happen soon?
Yes. It's going to happen in about 2 minutes. You're going to come in. And then when he's done, I'll come in, I'll finish up with you, and then it will be done.
So it'll just be like pictures?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And don't feel like you have to choose. If you see the person, great. If you remember that person, great. If you don't, it's not a big deal. Don't feel like you have to choose someone. Other people, in this case, they talk as well. So, we're just trying to find out who this other person is. Okay.
You guys got Dominic and Daniel, right?
Yes. So, Yep, and we're trying to find out who that other person is.
After picking up the older man, the group drove onwards to Pajarito Mesa. This, of course, is the remote desert location where Jesus' body would be discovered the following day. The criminal complaint states that when they arrived at the mesa, all individuals exited the vehicle. Gomez Salinas later told investigators that she then heard the males fighting. She also reported hearing gunfire. According to the complaint, the others then returned to the vehicle, but Jesus did not. The vehicle then left the mesa without him. In this case, the complaint suggests that a confrontation and gunfire occurred at Pajarito Mesa itself. However, investigators still needed to rely on physical evidence, on forensic processing, and digital timelines to confirm sequence and participation. One question that emerged during court proceedings involved a degree of participation by each defendant. Prosecutors argued that the events were coordinated and planned, but the defense counsel for Mariana argued that she did not fire a weapon and that she had simply been pressured into participating. That distinction would later matter. Another unresolved issue involves the unidentified older man, but at the time of court proceedings, the man remained at large. That left a central question hanging over the case. If the alleged shooter was not in custody, how would responsibility now be distributed among the teens who were present? As the case moved into 2025, the three defendants' legal paths began to separate.
Marquez took a plea deal in connection to the shooting death of a teen whose body was found on the Pajarito Mesa. Police say then 17-year-old Marquez, Daniel Medrano Garcia, and Mariana Gomez planned to rob 16-year-old Jesus Quintana Cota in May of 2024. Judge Joseph Montaño accepted Marquez's no contest plea to first-degree murder and armed robbery.
Dominic Marquez was the first to resolve his case. In September of 2025, he entered a no-contest plea to his first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, armed robbery, tampering with evidence, and conspiracy to commit tampering with evidence charges. Judge Joseph Montaño accepted his plea. Marquez faced a sentencing range of 12 to 22 years in prison. The state argued that the crime was coordinated and planned out. This was not spontaneous. The defense requested leniency based on his age at the time of the offense. The court ultimately sentenced Marquez to 22 years in the New Mexico Corrections Department. That sentence reflected the top end of the available range. Mariana Gomez Salinas chose a different path and went to trial. Her jury trial began in early October 2025, before Judge Joseph A. Montaño in the 2nd Judicial District Court. The jury deliberated for approximately 9 hours over 2 days. At the conclusion of those deliberations, the jury returned their verdicts. Gomez Salinas was acquitted of first-degree murder. She was acquitted of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. She was acquitted of armed robbery. She was acquitted of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. However, the jury convicted her of kidnapping. Mariana was also convicted of tampering with evidence and conspiracy to commit tampering with evidence. Under New Mexico law, a kidnapping conviction in a case connected to a fatal outcome, it can carry a substantial sentence, even without a murder conviction. Gomez Salinas faced up to 22.5 years in prison. At sentencing, members of Jesus' family delivered impact statements. A family member described him as bright, kind and loving, and spoke about the compounded loss following the earlier death of his mother. Judge Montaño sentenced Gomez Salinas to 19.5 years in prison. Her attorney, Christopher C. Marlowe, had previously argued that she did not fire the weapon and had been pressured by the others. And the jury's verdict did kind of reflect that, because they didn't hold her directly responsible, but as a participant in the abduction and aftermath. Meanwhile, Daniel Medrano Garcia remains charged with first-degree murder, with kidnapping and other related offences. At the time of the latest reporting, his trial had not yet concluded. There is also the unresolved matter of the unidentified older man. He was described in court documents as having pointed the rifle at Jesus, and allegedly the triggerman. Multiple reports stated that he remained at large during key stages of proceedings. That leaves an open question within the case record. So, 2 teenagers have now received prison sentences totaling nearly 4 decades. One defendant is still awaiting trial, but it does look like he's going down. Overall, this whole thing is just a tragic waste of the lives of at least 4 people.
You're so young. All you guys are. And to do something like this was just insane. I mean, if for whatever reason you find yourself able to not go to prison forever, I hope you learn from this so hopefully you make better decisions, because you're 18 and your life your decisions matter, because brother lost his life because he helped. And just being honest. I've always been honest with you and been truthful with you. And it's unfortunate. It's a tragedy all the way around. You guys are so young. And you guys are facing some of the most serious crimes that you can be charged with. Your first degree is the highest you can be charged with.
What are your thoughts on this case? Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.